So the next speaker is Patricia Carbajal from the Instituto del Mar of Peru, and she'll talk about the state of knowledge of non-indigenous marine species along Peruvian waters.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank you to John Alonso and Violeta Luque for all the help to come here by me. Peru is a developing country, a lead partner of the GloFouling Partnership Project. In this sense, we thought convenient to present the state of knowledge of non-indigenous marine species along Peruvian water as a baseline for the future actions and implementation of the project in Peru. This presentation, this work, was a collaboration of Instituto del Mar del Perú, the national coordination of the project in Peru, and also la Dirección de Capitanía y Guardacostas, that is a focal point in Peru. The presentation will contain a background about the location and biological and oceanographical aspect of Peruvian marine coast, and also sections about the non-indigenous species that has previously recorded in Peru, and a section of non-indigenous species that are invasive, and some aspects about national legislation, and some concluding remarks. As a background, we can say that Peruvian marine ecosystem is characterized by the presence of the current Humboldt system, which is a well-known productive area that is considered the highest in the world compared to other productive marine areas, as can we see in the graph. Also, this area is characterized by a permanent upwelling that bring nutrients from depth zones to shallow water. This condition is changed with an interannual variability provoked by El Niño. El Niño provokes the displacement of masses of water. And this is important to say that this provokes the introductions of species, but it's a natural change in the distribution, in the geographical distribution of the species that we usually we are accustomed to record species from equator or from the north of Peru, depending on the intensity of the Niño event. For this work, we have integrated all the data of scientific reports, scientific publications, and also great literature, and also observation of scientists that have worked in inventories or monitoring activities along the coasts. The first session I will talk about species that have intentionally introduced in Peru for aquaculture. There are only 3 species. There are a fish and 2 invertebrate. The invertebrate is Chrysostera gigas and Aliotis rufescens. The first one is considered a very invasive species. However, all the 3 species hasn't been any report yet about the ecological impact, because mainly these are species that have been maintained in confined environments, and also the activity of aquaculture of these species has been very reduced compared to other native species. There are also introductions of phytoplankton species, many phytoplankton species for food the previous species that I mentioned. This species has been reported during a gathering of the CPPS for Canepa in 2009. And since then, there has not been an update of the record of non-native species in Peru. But we realized that updating the information, the number of species has increased. For example, we have 3 cases of non-native species or non-indigenous species that have invasive behavior. I will talk about each of these species. First is Fiona Robusta, formerly known for as Siona intestinalis. This species has a great reproductive and dispersal capacity. We can find this species in natural environment, but at low densities. But it's very different in aquaculture facilities. In those cases, we found, especially in scallop aquaculture facilities of Argopectin purpuratum, which is the main benthic commercial species in Peru, we found that this species cause high losses because compete with the main species, with the scallop, compete for food, compete for space, and also make this aquaculture facility too heavy, and always is in all the studies that have been made, this species is the first or the second one more important in biomass and cover. And we can see in these charts. Other species that recently have causing problems is the green algae Caulerpa filiformis. This species have been originally found in Africa, but we don't know exactly the year that arrived to Peru. But was first reported in 1914. So we used to recognize that as a naturalized species because of the time of introduction. However, recently, this species has been translated to the central coast of Peru during the transport of juveniles of Argopectin purpuratus for aquaculture facilities. So this transportation has caused the establishment of new population of this species, and we have proof that modifies the community, the infaunal and epifaunal community, and thus in those places where this species is now newly found. Other new record is Anemone alicemartinae, and red anemone that was formerly recorded in Chile. It has like almost of these species that are invasive, has great capacity of dispersion to invade new areas. Oh, excuse me. Oh, where's red? Okay. This species was first found only in Chile, and then has spread to the south of Chile, and finally it arrived to the south of Peru. Its study has found the major diversity of genetic diversity in the localities placed in Peru. Also, they have found that this species has more diversity in places near ports. So it is believed that this species could be arrived as a biofouling. This is a recent study that used ecological niche model to predict the distribution of anemone in Chile and in Peru. And they predicted that this species will expand the range to the north. And we support this result because we have found this species in location more northern than before, than used to found before. So it probably expand with the years, expand its range. The problem is that we don't know exactly what is the ecological impact of this species, of these new appearances in our system. Now I'm gonna present some records, new records of other species that we exactly don't know the ecological impact, and we don't know exactly when they arrive to our coast, and but they are probably introduced through ballast water or as a biofouling species. For example, the Polydora giardi and Polydora websteri, they are polychaetes of Spionidae family. Also, Alita succinia. All these species have dispersal capacities that gave the possibility to invade other species. In this map, we can see that in the red color, there are introduced areas where this species is now found. Bubula neritina, we found this species since the 60s. It appears in the record of those years. So, but this is a non-native species also. Amphibalanus amphitrite, it's another cirriped barnacle. And we also recently have found or recorded pericardiate species, isopods, and many amphipods. And it's probably there are many other species that we didn't record yet because the scarcity of taxonomists that are working in those groups. About the national legislation, there is no implementation of the IMO guideline biofouling yet. There is in 2016, Peru ratified the International Convention for the Control and Management of Ships, Ballast Water, and Sediments. And this is currently a monitoring that is currently carried out aboard the vessels. Well, but the good news is we are just to approve a plan, a national action plan about invasive exotic species. This plan was the result of 4 years of contribution of the working group of exotic species of the Commission, National Commission of Biological Diversity, which is an advisory body related to biodiversity topics for the government, and it's also had the function to implement the commitments of the Biological Convention of Diversity. Convention of Biological Diversity, excuse me. The objectives of this plan prevent the entry of new invasive exotic species, control the dispersion of the exotic species already identified in the country, and reduce the impact on biological diversity, ecosystem services, and health and economy. And also increase the awareness of key actors about the risk and impacts of these species, encouraging informed decisions for the management. This, as I mentioned, this national plan is waiting for its approval this year. As a concluding remarks, we can say there is a lack of national species inventories and ports in base. In general, there are many taxonomic groups that are poorly known in Peruvian waters, like Porifera, Nigerians, polycats. So we have that problem as a baseline. So we need to start, for example, with certain inventories in areas that could be problematic in the future, because the trends is of increasing the maritime activities. The records of non-indigenous species have increased as we have known in the last years. These introduction events are most likely to be human mediated, maybe through ballast water or maybe through biofouling. The ecological and economical impact of the establishment of non-indigenous species has not been quantified of any of these species. Growing marine-related economic activities at national scale definitely would accelerate the introduction of these species. And the probability of establishment and innovation of non-indigenous species could increase under the climate change scenario. IMO biofouling guidelines have not yet been implemented, increasing the probability of new species introductions. So we consider that it is urgent to establish scientific guidelines and strengthen the national regulatory framework to avoid the possible impact of future non-indigenous species that could enter to our country. Thanks.